Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. And today, we're going to be taking a closer look at all the buzz going around BlockDAG, specifically their Keynote 3 Defining Moment video. Now you're here because you want the inside scoop, right? The real crucial stuff without all the technical jargon. And, well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We've taken the time to really go through that keynote transcript and, well, we've pulled out the core updates, the most important progress points, the surprising aha moments. Basically, everything you need to get a clear picture of where BlockDAG is at right now and, well, where they're aiming to go.
Yeah, exactly. Think of this deep dive as your express lane to understanding why this Keynote 3, might just be a complete game changer for BlockDAG. We're going to distill everything down, the most essential information, delivered to you in a structured and insightful way, all taken straight from their own announcements.
Perfect. So let's jump right in. To really grasp what Keynote 3 means, you kind of need a little refresher on what's come before, right? Now, Keynote 1, that was their grand entrance, the big reveal. They showcased this hybrid architecture of theirs, which is basically this blend of technologies designed for speed, super tight security, and just massive scalability. They were essentially saying, hey, here's a totally new way to build a blockchain.
Right. And then Keynote 2 comes along and builds on that promise. This is where they launched the X1 Miner app, which was a really key step, I think, in getting real users involved. It allowed everyday people to jump in and participate directly in the BlockDAG economy. Plus, they had this, what they touted as a record-breaking pre-sale. And that sent a pretty strong signal, I think, about early belief in the project.
Yeah, definitely. So you have those first two milestones, which, well, they really set the stage for Keynote 3. And this latest keynote, it feels like they've shifted gears, right? They're moving fast. The whole vibe isn't just about small improvements here and there. This is presented as a huge leap forward, a fundamental change.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is the clear emphasis in Keynote 3. They're not just talking about, like you said, minor tweaks. They're highlighting big advancements in their technology. They're forging global partnerships. They're rolling out all these initiatives for developers. And they're laying out, a really ambitious plan for 2025 and beyond. It suggests they're moving from, that initial foundational development phase to something much broader, like full-on ecosystem building.
And it seems like the real driver behind all of this is this really big vision they have, the idea of a future where, decentralized tech isn't just for the crypto experts. It's like an essential part of how everything works, accessible to everyone. That's the dream, right?
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture for you, the listener, they're not just trying to build a faster way to send digital money. They're trying to build a more inclusive, more resilient world built on this idea of decentralization. This keynote really makes it clear, I think, how ambitious they are to be leading the charge, to be at the forefront of this next wave of technological innovation.
All right, so let's dig into some of the specifics, the numbers they highlighted from 2024, which they're calling, well, their year of true transformation. And some of these numbers they're throwing out are, I gotta say, pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, they definitely paint a picture of rapid growth. Close to 170,000 holders. That's not just a number on a screen. That's a serious community they're building. It signals real engagement, and a strong belief in the project's potential. It goes beyond, I think, just simple speculation or investment.
Yeah.
And then you've got the X1 miners, right? Over 750,000 users actively participating. That shows a real desire to interact with the BlockDAG ecosystem. They want to be a part of it.
And what about that Telegram tap miner? It's unbelievable. Over 400,000 signups with something like 100,000 people playing every single day. That really shows you how they're trying to, make earning crypto something that's actually fun, something approachable that just about anyone with a smartphone can do.
For sure. It's a really smart way to get new users on board, especially those who might feel a little, intimidated by traditional crypto. It lowers the barrier to entry and, well, it makes that whole earning potential a lot more tangible and, fun. And then you have the community growth across their other platforms, right? Hitting over 100,000 members globally. That just reinforces, I think, this whole idea of a rapidly growing, passionate, and excited user base.
And of course, we can't forget about the massive amount of funding they've managed to secure. They're framing this as, fuel for innovation, fuel for expansion, not just, cash sitting in a bank somewhere. And it definitely suggests that there are some pretty serious investors out there who, well, they see real potential in BlockDAG.
Right. That level of financial backing is critical. It gives them the resources to really go after their goals, to pursue that technological development, and, well, to expand that ecosystem they keep talking about. It's a major vote of confidence in their long-term vision and, well, their ability to execute, to actually get stuff done.
So this is where things get super interesting, I think. They started talking about their Mainnet launch plans. Now, the initial word on the street was that they were aiming for a launch before the end of 2024. And, get this, they actually managed to finish the core infrastructure ahead of schedule. It's moving fast.
Yeah, completing the core tech ahead of schedule, that's a big deal. It shows, I think, just how efficient and on point their development team is.
But then, here's the twist, right? They decided to switch things up a bit. They made the strategic call to extend the presale and, well, give themselves a bit more time to really perfect and optimize the network before they launch it for real. And the reasoning, they want to make absolutely sure that everything is top-notch from day one. The scalability, the performance, the security, all of it. They don't want to cut any corners.
And while delays, they can sometimes be a bit of a red flag in the crypto world. In this case, I think it's different. I think this decision shows that they're in it for the long haul. They're committed to quality and stability. It's about doing things right rather than rushing to meet an arbitrary deadline. And that's a key factor in the success of any blockchain project, right?
Definitely. And to give us a bit more of a sense of the real people behind all these numbers, they shared some testimonials from the community. We heard from Daryl Coates, a U.S. military veteran now living in Italy. He talked about the strong feeling he had, almost like a gut feeling, about BlockDAG and his desire to, use it to actually help others.
And I think Daryl's story, it really highlights that powerful connection some early adopters feel towards a project, especially one they really believe in, one that resonates with them personally. His background, his motivation to use BlockDAG for good, it really underscores that community-driven spirit that a lot of people in the crypto space really value.
Then we heard from L. Daniel Barras, who, get this, was inspired by a dream he had and, a friend's post he saw on social media. His story was really interesting because it emphasizes that journey of, learning about crypto and recognizing BlockDAG's potential, even if you're not a tech whiz.
Absolutely. L. Daniel's experience just reminds us that people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds and with different motivations can be drawn to crypto. Yeah. His story adds a nice personal touch, and it illustrates how BlockDAG is catching the attention of people, even those who might not be super technical.
It really does seem like there's a strong, positive energy within the BlockDAG community, which is always a good sign. So now let's talk a bit about the tech itself, the innovations they're focusing on. We already touched on the X1 Miner app, and that's definitely a core piece of the puzzle for getting people involved.
Right. The X1 Miner app acts as this sort of gateway, this user-friendly entry point to the BlockDAG ecosystem. And by adding things like referral programs and gamified leaderboards, they're not just encouraging people to download it, they're encouraging actual active participation within the community, which is smart.
And then there's the Telegram tap miner, right?
Yeah.
This play-to-earn game that has just exploded in popularity. It really shows how earning crypto can be, fun and accessible to anyone, even if you're not, a hardcore crypto trader.
I think the success of the tap miner really shows you the power of simplicity, of making things accessible. They're leveraging this familiar platform, Telegram, and this super straightforward game mechanic. And, it's working. It's lowered the barrier to entry and opened up the world of crypto to so many people.
Okay, so on the hardware side, they unveiled their new X30 and X100 ASIC miners. These are like serious pieces of machinery specifically made for their unique network architecture. And they've actually started shipping these out to early adopters. Their goal is to have nearly 10,000 of these miners up and running before Mainnet even launches.
Yeah, and that's huge. Those ASIC miners, they're going to form this critical part of their decentralized network. They're the workhorses responsible for validating transactions and getting them into the hands of real users before the Mainnet launches. That's a big logistical challenge, and it shows, I think, their dedication to making sure that mining power is spread out across the network.
All right, so now let's get into their core innovation, which is, their hybrid consensus mechanism. And, it's really a clever combo of the security you get from proof of work, but also the speed and flexibility of a DAG, a directed acyclic graph.
Exactly. And what's really cool here is how they've blended these two approaches. Proof of work, we all know, is this well-established method for securing a network using computational power. But then they bring in the DAG, which allows for parallel processing of transactions. And that's the key to achieving these super high speeds that just aren't possible with traditional blockchains.
It's kind of like this, right? Imagine a traditional blockchain is like this one-lane country road. Only one car at a time or one transaction can pass through, which leads to, well, traffic jams and slowdowns. Now, BlockDAG's DAG, that's like a multi-lane superhighway. Lots of cars or transactions can zip along simultaneously, which means everything moves much faster and, well, there's a lot less congestion.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. And it's that parallel processing, that ability to do multiple things at the same time, that allows BlockDAG to potentially achieve a much higher transaction throughput.
Yeah.
The number of transactions they can process per second. And it also helps reduce that energy consumption, which is, well, big concern with traditional blockchains.
Right. And speaking of efficiency, they're emphasizing that their core design, how they've built everything from the ground up, helps keep those transaction costs low and, really minimizes that energy usage, making the whole network much more sustainable. And that's a big deal these days, right?
Oh, absolutely. That focus on efficiency, on sustainability, I think it's becoming more and more important in the blockchain space. It's not just about attracting users. It's also about addressing, those legitimate environmental concerns people have. So, yeah, lower fees and less energy use, those are huge advantages, especially in the long run.
Now, for the developers out there who, well, they're interested in building on top of BlockDAG, they introduced this new integrated development environment, an IDE, and these token creation wizards. And from the sounds of it, these tools could really streamline the whole process of launching new tokens and apps.
Yeah, the IDE and the token creation wizards, they're powerful tools that lower the barrier to entry for developers. By giving them these pre-built features and built-in security, they're empowering a wider range of people, even if they're not, coding experts, to build on the BlockDAG platform. And that's a huge win for fostering innovation, right?
Definitely. And they also talked about all the continuous improvements they're making, something like over 200 updates since their last keynote. And they're focusing on, things like making transactions faster, strengthening their security measures, expanding what they can do with smart contracts. I mean, that's a crazy pace of development.
Yeah, it shows you that they're not just resting on their laurels, right? They're constantly iterating, making things better. That constant cycle of updates and, the sheer number of improvements, it really demonstrates how committed they are to innovation, to staying ahead of the curve in this crazy, fast-moving world of technology.
Another thing they highlighted was MEV resilience, which, well, it's all about ensuring that transaction processing is fair and transparent for everyone on the network.
Right. MEV, or miner extractable value, it's this, somewhat complex issue that can sometimes pop up in blockchain networks. It basically means that miners can, in some cases, prioritize certain transactions for their own profit. And BlockDAG's focus on MEV resilience, well, it suggests that they want to create a more level playing field where all transactions are treated equally.
And this next point is huge for our listeners. They're really emphasizing their compatibility with the Ethereum virtual machine, the EVM, through their GhostDAG protocol. And that means that BlockDAG could potentially tap into this massive ecosystem of existing DeFi, gaming, and Web3 apps built on Ethereum.
And that's a really strategic move on their part. By ensuring compatibility with the EVM, they're essentially opening themselves up to this huge, vibrant, active ecosystem of decentralized applications. Developers can take their existing Ethereum-based projects and, well, potentially port them over to BlockDAG without too much hassle. And that could seriously expand what's possible on the platform.
So let's switch gears a bit and talk about their community building efforts. They're launching this new BlockDAG Academy, which is essentially an educational program with different levels. And the whole point is to help people, regular people, really understand this tech and, its real world applications.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. It's about building a knowledgeable and engaged community. By giving people these structured educational resources, they're not just teaching them how to use the technology, they're empowering them to understand at a deeper level how it works, why it matters, and, the potential use cases in things like DeFi, in gaming, all sorts of stuff.
They're also really focused on something they call the developer first movement. It's this whole set of initiatives designed to bring in developers to support them, to make BlockDAG this attractive platform to build on.
Absolutely. And that's so important. Developers are the lifeblood of any blockchain platform. By creating this supportive environment, they're hoping to attract all that amazing talent who will build the next generation of killer decentralized apps on BlockDAG.
So one of those initiatives is an ambassador program for, developers, community leaders, educators, anyone who's really passionate about BlockDAG and who wants to spread the word and help others get involved.
Right. It's all about leveraging that enthusiasm, that expertise within their existing community. Those ambassadors can go out and tell people about BlockDAG, provide support to newcomers, help developers, really contribute to the growth of that ecosystem.
And then there's this grants program, which offers, funding and resources to support those innovative dApps and infrastructure improvements being built on BlockDAG. It's like giving those developers the tools and the support they need to really bring their ideas to life.
Yeah, and that kind of support is so crucial. That financial backing, the mentorship, it incentivizes people to build cool new applications and to improve the BlockDAG platform. And that leads to growth and, just a more robust ecosystem overall.
They're also kicking off this global hackathon series, and they're putting up some serious prize money to encourage developers to build on BlockDAG. The countdown to that first hackathon has already started, which is super exciting.
Hackathons are awesome because they bring all these talented people together and create this burst of innovation. And when you combine that with, big prizes and mentorship opportunities, you can get some truly groundbreaking applications that really push the limits of what the BlockDAG network can do.
Later this year, they're also launching a bug bounty program, which will basically reward ethical hackers, the good guys, for finding and reporting any security vulnerabilities. It's like a proactive step towards making sure the platform is as secure as humanly possible.
Yeah, and that's a smart move, especially in the crypto world, right? The bug bounty program is like crowdsourcing your security. You're tapping into this wider community of experts who can help identify and fix any potential weaknesses before they become problems. And that ultimately just strengthens the entire network and makes it more reliable.
And they kept coming back to this point about how security is just a fundamental principle for them. It's woven into everything they do, every aspect of their technology, their whole vision. They highlighted, their super strong cryptography and the inherent security you get from a decentralized consensus mechanism.
And that's really the foundation for building trust, for building a platform that's going to be around for the long haul. Without strong encryption and a decentralized network, well, you really don't have much.
They've also had all their smart contracts thoroughly audited by some of the top security firms in the business, companies like Certic and Halborn. And they're planning a full-scale audit of the entire network before that mainnet goes live. That's serious commitment to security.
Absolutely. It's essential in this space. Bringing in these independent, reputable, third-party auditors, it gives everyone peace of mind. It's an objective, unbiased evaluation of their security measures, which is exactly what you want.
To protect all those financial operations, they're using something called institutional-grade multi-party computation, which, sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, and it is. It's about using some super advanced cryptographic techniques to protect everyone's assets, adding that extra layer of security and, just building trust.
They also discussed how they're building this fully fault-tolerant infrastructure with servers located all around the globe.
Yeah.
It's all about making sure that, no matter what happens, the network stays up and running. Exactly. A resilient infrastructure is so important. It's got to be geographically diverse. It's got to be able to withstand, technical glitches and external threats. All those things contribute to a reliable, stable network.
And, they brought it back to their DAG-based architecture again, emphasizing that it inherently offers some security advantages over those traditional blockchains. It's mostly because of the way transactions are confirmed in parallel, which, it makes attacks much more difficult to pull off.
Right. It's like having a much more distributed and interconnected network. It becomes much harder for bad actors to target and disrupt things because of that, parallel nature of transaction validation. The DAG structure just makes things more secure by design.
And they're not just relying on their own team either. They're collaborating with universities and research institutions to stay at the cutting edge of, security best practices and enhancements. It's a good sign that they're in it for the long game, for sure. It shows a long-term mindset. Partnering with academia means they're tapping into that constant flow of research and development and security, which is, it's crucial in this constantly evolving space.
Now, let's talk about the big question that I'm sure a lot of you are wondering about. When's Mainnet launch? Well, their target is later in 2025, and they're spending all this time between now and then really focusing on, making sure everything runs perfectly, optimizing performance, efficiency, and of course, security.
And that mainnet launch, that's a big milestone, right? It's when BlockDAG transitions from this development stage to a fully operational live public network. And all that pre-launch work they're doing, that's crucial. It's going to make sure that the deployment goes smoothly and, well, that the network runs reliably from day one.
They're also putting a lot of energy into growing that ecosystem of decentralized applications, providing support to those early developers who are jumping in. And they're also going to be rolling out those governance mechanisms. And that means the community, the users, will get to have a real say in the future of BlockDAG, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's super important. A strong developer community and a system for decentralized governance, those are key to building a healthy, sustainable blockchain network. It's about ensuring that the network keeps evolving, that there's this constant innovation happening, and that the community, the people who are actually using it, have a voice in the decision-making process.
When it comes to speed, they're aiming for a minimum of 2,000 transactions per second right out of the gate, with the goal of scaling up to over 15,000 transactions per second within those first 2 years. And that would make them significantly faster than a lot of the blockchains we see out there right now.
Those are some ambitious targets. If they hit those numbers, it would mean BlockDAG would be a real contender, a high-performance platform that could support, all sorts of applications that just wouldn't work on slower networks. We're talking about things that require super fast processing, things like, high-frequency trading, micropayments, all sorts of stuff.
They're also going all in on DeFi from day one. Full DeFi functionality, all that good stuff, staking, lending, borrowing, seamless interactions with dApps. They're expecting a lot of activity in that DeFi space, and they're ready for it.
And that's another really strategic move. Launching with all those DeFi capabilities ready to go, it creates this immediate utility for users and lays the groundwork for a really dynamic, decentralized finance ecosystem on BlockDAG. It's about attracting users, attracting capital, and really building something special.
And they haven't forgotten about the community either. They've got plans to keep expanding their educational programs, their community events, their ambassador program. It really shows, I think, how much they value those users, those people who are actually using a platform and contributing to its success.
And that's so key. A strong, engaged community is such a powerful asset for any decentralized project. It's about creating that sense of ownership, making people feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And that drives adoption and growth like nothing else.
Looking ahead, they laid out this really bold roadmap. Their goal is to support over 1,000 decentralized applications by 2026. And we're talking about apps across all kinds of industries, finance, healthcare, gaming, you name it. Pretty ambitious, right?
It is, but I think it shows how confident they are in their platform. That's a big number to hit. And it means they really believe in the power of BlockDAG to attract developers, to attract users, and to support all sorts of applications across, basically every industry you can think of. It's about demonstrating that versatility, that ability to handle just about anything.
They're also, diving into these really cutting edge areas like the Internet of Things, AI, self-sovereign identity, data, personhood, all that futuristic stuff. It seems like they really want to push the boundaries of what blockchain technology can actually achieve.
Definitely. It's about thinking outside the box, looking beyond those traditional financial applications of blockchain, and exploring how this technology can be used to solve problems in all sorts of different areas. It shows, I think, a real forward-thinking vision.
Another feature they're working on is account abstraction. And this is all about making blockchain easier to use, more flexible, and of course, more secure. The ultimate goal is to make blockchain tech accessible to just about anyone, not just, the tech-savvy folks.
Yeah, and that's crucial for mass adoption, right? Account abstraction, it's about bridging that gap between, the everyday internet user and this world of decentralized applications.
Yeah.
It's about making it super simple and intuitive for people to interact with blockchain, even if they don't fully understand the technical details.
So, their overall vision, where they want to go with all of this, they're imagining a future where transactions happen almost instantly, where applications run seamlessly, and where innovation drives this whole new decentralized economy. And they see BlockDAG as this driving force in that revolution.
Yeah, it's a pretty compelling vision. It's about this, this future where decentralized technology isn't just a niche thing. It's seamlessly integrated into every aspect of our digital lives. And BlockDAG is positioning itself as a key enabler of that future, which is exciting.
Now, they also took some time to directly address some of the questions that you or a listener might have. And one of the big ones is transaction speed. As we've discussed, they're targeting some impressive numbers that could really blow a lot of other blockchains out of the water.
And that's important because scalability has been, a major roadblock for a lot of blockchain projects. If BlockDAG can deliver on those speed targets, it would be a real game changer, especially for applications that require, super fast transaction processing.
They also talked about their mining reward system, which is a bit different from what you see with Bitcoin. Instead of those set and halving events where the rewards drop by half all at once, they're implementing this more gradual, continuous reduction. And they think that's going to lead to, a more stable market overall.
Right. It's about smoothing out those bumps.
Yeah.
Right? Those halving events with Bitcoin, they can cause a lot of price volatility, which can be disruptive. This gradual reduction approach, it's designed to, just create a more predictable and stable environment for miners and investors. It's a more measured approach, I think.
And when it comes to those pesky transaction fees, well, their DAG-based design should, in theory, allow for much lower and more consistent fees, even as the network grows. And that, of course, is always good news for the users.
Absolutely. Lower fees, that's a major factor in driving adoption. If people can use the network without getting hit with those high transaction costs, well, it makes it much more appealing for everyday transactions and, all those interactions within those decentralized applications. It just makes everything more accessible.
They also made it clear that full DeFi functionality will be live right from the start when the mainnet launches, and they're expecting a whole ecosystem of third-party applications to spring up pretty quickly.
Right. And as we discussed earlier, launching with all those DeFi capabilities built in, it's about offering real utility from day one. It sets the stage for this vibrant and, hopefully rapidly growing decentralized finance ecosystem. They're giving people the tools, and now, well, it's up to those creative developers to build on top of it.
And for those of you listening who are interested in getting involved, they highlighted all the different ways you can participate. You can join their academy, learn about the technology. You can participate in those hackathons. You can even become an ambassador. They've made it pretty clear that there are a lot of options, a lot of ways to contribute.
Yeah, and that's important, that feeling of community involvement. It creates a sense of ownership and encourages people to, to really be a part of the BlockDAG journey. And that can make all the difference in the success of a project.
Finally, they talked about, that fundamental difference between their DAG technology and the traditional blockchain. They use that analogy of the single-lane highway versus the multi-lane superhighway, which, well, I think was a pretty effective way to illustrate the limitations of those older blockchain designs, right? The way they process transactions one after the other, that potential for congestion, those high fees, those slow transaction times.
It's a great analogy because it really gets to the heart of the architectural differences, right? Those traditional blockchains, they're inherently limited by that sequential processing model. It just creates these bottlenecks and makes it really hard for them to scale efficiently.
And they contrasted that with BlockDAG's DAG structure, which, it embraces that parallel processing. Multiple miners can validate transactions simultaneously, which essentially blows those scalability issues out of the water.
Exactly. It's about leveraging the power of parallel processing, right? It's like having multiple processors in your computer instead of just one. And that allows for a much higher transaction throughput compared to, those older blockchains that are stuck in that linear one-at-a-time processing mode.
They also pointed out that their DAG structure makes it a lot easier for regular people to get involved in mining. You could potentially mine using your phone, or those specialized devices that aren't as energy hungry. And that's a big contrast to, something like Bitcoin mining, which has become this, really specialized and resource-intensive endeavor.
Right, and that's important for decentralization. The more people that can participate in securing the network, the better. It makes the network more resilient, more resistant to attacks, and, just more in line with the original spirit of blockchain technology.
And BlockDAG, they're positioning themselves as the straightforward, fully decentralized Layer 1 solution. They're aiming to avoid all the complications and potential centralization issues that you can sometimes run into with those Layer 2 scaling solutions that are, tacked on top of other blockchains.
It's about keeping things simple, elegant, and fundamentally decentralized. By building everything from the ground up as a Layer 1 solution, they're creating a more integrated and streamlined platform, which, I think it could be a big advantage in the long run.
So to wrap up this deep dive into BlockDAG's Keynote 3, it's clear they've made some impressive progress in their technology. They've built this incredible and rapidly growing community. And, they've laid out this really ambitious roadmap for the future. They're planning to launch that mainnet in 2025, and they've got this big, bold vision for, what decentralized technology can become.
Definitely. They're clearly committed to innovation. They're focused on building a secure and reliable platform. And, well, they really seem to care about empowering their users, giving them a voice, and building something that's, truly decentralized and accessible to everyone. It's an exciting project to watch, for sure.
Here's one final thought for you to ponder. Given BlockDAG's, unique DAG architecture and their focus on making this tech easy to use, accessible to everyone, how could this change how we think about the impact of blockchain, about its potential to really achieve widespread adoption? What new possibilities could open up when you have this combination of, parallel processing power and user friendliness, things that maybe those older blockchains just couldn't achieve?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. I mean, think about it. Increased scalability, increased accessibility. It could lead to entirely new categories of applications, new use cases that, well, we haven't even thought of yet. It's worth taking a moment to really consider what those possibilities might be, what kind of future we could build with this technology.
Absolutely. We encourage you to check out BlockDAG, to dig a little deeper, explore what they're doing, see if it resonates with you, and stay tuned because they've hinted that there's a launch note coming soon. So more exciting updates are just around the corner. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.